All right, let's dive straight into a genuinely fascinating success story today. Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're looking at how one company turned an absolute compliance nightmare into this incredibly streamlined, massive win. We're talking about First Advantage Biometrics. These guys faced an absolute mountain of new FBI security requirements, and somehow they managed to satisfy the whole shebang with just one elegant move. It's honestly a masterclass in working smarter, not harder, by finding the absolute right technology partnership. To really wrap our heads around the scale of this win, you've got to look at this number, 74. That represents 74 incredibly dense pages of new FBI Criminal Justice Information System, or CJIS, Security Policy Identity and Authentication requirements. Just imagine that for a second. Your core business relies on FBI access, and suddenly someone hands you an encyclopedia of new line-by-line compliance hurdles aligned with NIST 853 standards. For most organizations, that number induces pure panic. But now, flip the script and contrast that massive headache with this number, 1. Literally just one single credential. That is all it took to satisfy those entire 74 pages. First Advantage essentially discovered a federally approved bureaucratic hack to bypass all that endless documentation. And today, we are going to map out exactly how they pulled it off. So here's the roadmap for this explainer. 1. The FBI Compliance Challenge. 2. 3 roadblocks to compliance. 3. The single credential solution. 4. Engineering and offline fix. And 5. Partnership and business outcomes. Let's get right into it. Starting off with Section 1, the SBI Compliance Challenge and facing the CJIS audit. Context here is pretty much everything. First Advantage has been an FBI channeler since the inception of the channeling program back in 2006. So a failed audit? That would threaten their very foundation as a business. They absolutely needed a solution that was bulletproof technically and completely audit defensible. Their channeling information security officer actually summed it up perfectly. They said, "We have 74 pages of requirements. We would either have to identify how we comply with line by line, or we can just demonstrate that we use an HSPD-12 credential." That was a no-brainer. I love that quote because it totally humanizes this massive corporate burden. They found a shortcut, right? But taking that shortcut meant they had to overcome some pretty serious technical hurdles first. Which brings us to Section 2, 3 roadblocks to compliance, navigating the obstacles. You see, implementing loophole in a highly secure environment is no small feat. First Advantage couldn't just, download an app or buy some off-the-shelf software to make this happen. They faced 3 major complications. First up, that multi-page NIST 853 moderate compliance requirement. If they built their own system, they'd be stuck maintaining line-by-line adherence forever. Second, and this is a really big one, they operate in a completely segregated environment. Their infrastructure communicates only with the FBI. 0 external network access, no cloud, nothing. That alone rules out almost every modern biometric verification tool out there. And third, building an in-house credential service provider, or CSP, to issue these badges, that would be a monumental drain on their resources. So, they hit the classic build versus buy dilemma. Building an in-house CSP meant burning critical resources, facing crazy costs, and taking on a massive permanent compliance burden. On the flip side, partnering with NextgenID. That offered off-the-shelf compliance. NextgenID already holds federally approved status, which basically takes the entire weight of compliance and just lifts it right off First Advantage's shoulders. All right, let's look at Section 3, the single credential solution, aka the bureaucratic hack. Now here is where the magic actually happens. First Advantage realized that the CJIS security policy contained this specific provision that most non-federal organizations completely overlook. It's the HSPD-12 PIV-I credential. It's a federally approved multi-factor cryptographic device. And what's absolutely fascinating is the legal weight this thing carries. By simply issuing this one credential to their personnel, First Advantage legally satisfied the entire CJIS Security Policy Identity and Authentication section, specifically under Control IA-2. So they didn't have to prove 74 pages of compliance anymore. They literally just had to show the auditor this one card issued by a federally approved provider like NextgenID. But why choose to partner with NextgenID specifically? Well, again, the First Advantage ISO spells it out. First Advantage has personnel centralized in Portland, Oregon, sure, but they're also spread out nationwide. Because NextgenID operates a nationwide PresenceID network of kiosks, employees could literally just pop into their nearest local station to get credentialed. No flights, no hotels, no massive travel expenses just to get a physical badge. Moving right along to Section 4, engineering an offline fix using custom match-on-card tech. Remember earlier when we talked about how First Advantage operates in a completely segregated environment? No internet, no cloud processing for biometrics. So how do you verify a fingerprint if you literally can't ping a server? Well, NextgenID engineered a custom three-factor authentication process that works entirely offline using what's called match-on-card technology. It goes like this. Step 1, the user inserts their PIV card. Step 2, they enter a PIN. Step 3, they provide a fingerprint. The absolute genius here is that the fingerprint biometric data is stored securely right on the cryptographic chip of the card itself. The scanner reads the physical finger, compares it to the data encrypted on the card, and boom, grants access without ever needing to communicate with an outside network. And NextgenID didn't just pull this software off a shelf. They built it for First Advantage's exact hardware. Michael Harris, the CTO at NextgenID, pointed this out. He said, no off-the-shelf solution existed for this environment. Watching a custom architecture go from whiteboard to a production system in a live FBI-connected environment, that is the kind of work I built this team to do. It really highlights their deep R&D commitment. They engineered a custom fingerprint profile designed specifically around the scanners First Advantage already had sitting on their desks. Finally, that brings us to Section 5, Partnership and Business Outcomes, Measuring the Triumph. Look, ideas and engineering are great, right? But in business, we measure success by deployment and actual results. And the deployment here was remarkably fast. They stood up the Portland kiosk first, and then successfully expanded remote enrollment. And the results? A perfect summary of risk just being completely removed. That 74-page audit nightmare reduced to a single one-line reference to NextgenID's federally approved status. The distributed workforce problem? Handled, without a single plane ticket, saving massive travel costs. And that impossible segregated network? Well, now it's successfully running a custom three-factor offline authentication system built to a standard most providers can't even offer. When you deliver results like that in the highly stressful, high-stakes world of federal compliance, you get testimonials like this one from First Advantage. You guys were the easy button, and I can't say enough good things about you. I mean, it is rare to hear that level of genuine relief in B2B technology. NextgenID basically took an existential compliance threat and completely neutralized it. And honestly, this brings up a massive point for the wider industry. The organizations that need this most are usually the ones who have no idea it even exists. Right now, as we speak, there are countless state agencies, authorized recipients, and other FBI channelers who are doing this the hard way. They are bleeding resources, trying to build internal compliance programs, and documenting endless controls because they simply don't know this HSPD-12 shortcut exists, or that NextgenID has the federal authorization to provide it. So I'm going to leave you with this final thought to consider about your own operations. Is your organization fighting bureaucracy the hard way, burning hours on compliance checklists, or are you actively looking for the single key that unlocks the door? First Advantage Biometrics found their key through a smart, highly capable partnership. It just goes to show that sometimes the best way to solve a 74-page problem isn't to read it, but to find the one credential that makes it irrelevant. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep looking for those smart solutions.